Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my August wrap up and my September TBR. So in the month of August I read 12 books. 2 of those were short stories and 4 of those were graphic novels. I DNF'd 1 book. Let's just get into it. So the first book I read in August was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which I actually can't find the physical copy of, but it is basically a play script of the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child play that they're still doing currently in London. The story about Harry Potter after his years at Hogwarts and after the last book finishes off. I finished the Harry Potter series in July. When I left off after the Deathly Hallows, I was just like yearning for more Harry Potter anything, and they actually included a preview of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at the end of the book. So I read a little bit of it and then decided I needed to get my hands on it. I read all of it very quickly and I gave it a 4 stars. I just really liked the characters. It takes place, like I said, after Harry's years at Hogwarts, so it follows him in the future when he has his own children, and I really liked getting to see his family and the way that he was represented in the story, as well as the characters are just so likable. Throughout Harry Potter, of course, you grow really fond of the characters just because there's 7 books, so you really get to know them, and for me it was like a good closure. So I would highly recommend that to anyone who's dealing with a little bit of like yearning for that Harry Potter sense again. The next book that I read in August was A Court of Wings and Ruin. So this is my first time reading the ACOTAR series and I just love it. I love it all. I had picked up and put down this book multiple times, but in the month of August I challenged myself to finish series that I had started, which you'll see later I've worked on a little bit. Not as much as I wanted to, but I really wanted to finish this series. Once I got to the halfway point, it was so easy for me to really want to finish the series, because towards the end I just kind of flew through the book. This one, this is the 3rd book in the series if you have not read it yet. It follows a lot of stressful times for everyone involved. The sister, you know what? I'm not gonna say too much on it because I know this is a very hyped up series and you all already know what happens probably, but I personally didn't really think I was going to enjoy the series. I just read it because all my friends were suggesting it, and it took me a long time to get into the first book, and then this book as well. It took me a little bit to get into it, like I said, but I highly recommend the series still. And I ended up giving this book a 4.8 stars, which is very specific, but just because I said it was a little bit slow in the beginning and I kind of felt like it wasn't totally necessary for that to happen, so it wasn't a perfect 5-star read for me. Next book I read was still in the ACOTAR series, and I actually read it on my Kindle, so I don't have it with me in the physical, but I read A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is like the 3.5 book of the series. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people say that it's not necessary, and I would agree that it's not necessary to the plot completely, but it wasn't the most interesting book in the series for sure, but I really liked it just because, like I said, I have gotten to know the characters and I just kind of like to see them like at a normal-ish point in time doing things that they would do every day. Just like a slow, simple living is kind of how I picture the book in my head. Very peaceful. And it definitely set up some background knowledge for you to like refer back to when you read the next book. I gave A Court of Frost and Starlight a 3 stars just because, like I said, it was a short book. It's a really short book if you guys don't know. It's not the most, how do I say this? It's not the most exciting book, but I really liked it still. And then surprise, surprise, the next book I read in August was also on my Kindle, and it was A Court of Silver Flames. If you guys don't know, this book follows Nesta, which is Farrah's sister, on her journey, and I loved this one. I loved it so much. I don't think it's my favorite in the series. Overall, I think that A Court of Mist and Fury is still my favorite just because I love Rhysand, just like everyone else does. I really liked Nesta's character development in the 4th book and just learning more about her. Coming off of the 3rd and a half book, this one picked up super quickly for me. I was very interested in it, invested from the start, and it is a big book, but I could not put it down. Genuinely, I'm still thinking about it to this day, which isn't that surprising. It's only been a few weeks. I do want to say that it does contain a lot more spice than the other books do, so be mindful of that going into it. Personally, I was able to kind of like skip. I don't really like to read a lot of spice, so I was able to kind of skip over some of it, and it didn't impact the way that I read the book at all. So I didn't miss any important things. I would highly recommend the series though, and I gave that book a 5 stars. In fact, because I loved that book so much, it sent me into a reading slump for a few days. It wasn't super long, but it definitely is still affecting me to right now in the present. The book that I followed that up with was a short story called The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie by Frida McFadden, which is a satirical comedy thriller book. Obviously, Frida McFadden is super popular. She's one of my favorite authors of all time, just because her books are so easily read by anyone, and the twist is always something that I never expect. So I really do appreciate that for her. As someone who doesn't like to read super intense, how would I say that? As someone who likes to read books that are easy, I really like her stuff. So this story was a 4 stars for me. I found it very interesting because it's kind of, like I said, it's satirical, so it's just kind of joking about all of the ways that authors write books in the thriller community. And obviously by the title, The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie, it's just making fun of it, essentially, just a tiny bit, which she makes fun of herself a lot in it, which I think it was so fun for me to read because I was getting her references to her other books. If you really like Frida McFadden like I do, and you've read a lot of her books, I think you'll really enjoy that short story. I didn't tell you guys, but I'm drinking a cold brew with blackberry and cream right now, and it is so good. So I need to have a little bit of caffeine really quick. The next book I read was also on my Kindle. So I discovered Libby this month, which it has just been amazing. I had some trouble with my library before this month getting an updated card because my library card is literally from when I was about 9 years old. So they were able to give me an updated card this month, and I was able to use Libby for the first time. And being on Libby, I started the Heartstopper series. So Heartstopper is essentially about these 2 boys who are in high school, and they kind of are discovering themselves, and they fall in love, and it's a romance, but it's a graphic novel, which I was a little bit apprehensive towards. But I really liked the graphic novel aspect, and for me it just reminded me that reading is supposed to be fun in whatever capacity I do it. So I really liked reading the graphic novels. I don't want to give away too much about the series because I did really fly through them too. They're very addictive and easy to read the next one like that. Very quick reads. So I read 1 through 4 this month, and if I'm being honest, I might even finish the 5th one soon, within the next day or so. But we'll see. I'm trying to slow myself down, but essentially I got the first one, I flew through it, absolutely became obsessed with it. I gave the first one a 5 stars. Then I tried to rent the second one on Libby, but I had to wait a while for it. So I waited a few days, and then I got the second one, flew through that, gave that one a 5 star because I just really remember loving the second Heartstopper volume. And then I had to wait a few more days till I got the third one, which I gave a 4 stars. Then I had to wait a whole week, to get the 4th one, which I just finished 2 days ago, which was my favorite of the whole series. So the series really deals a lot with figuring out yourself, like I said. It is set at a school in England, an all-boys school, and it deals with a lot of hard topics in a lighter way, if that makes sense. It focuses a lot on mental health and taking care of yourself and figuring out what a healthy relationship looks like, and how to deal with bullies and traumatic pasts and strained relationships and all sorts of intricate things that I really like how Alex, I'm pretty sure her name is Alex Olsman. Yeah, I like how she puts it in there. It is a young adult genre of a graphic novel, and like I said, there are some heavier topics for sure, but my personal favorite was the 4th because of the heaviness of what the main characters are Charlie and Nick, by the way. Charlie goes through some really difficult stuff in the 4th novel, and I really just enjoyed seeing him through it. It felt really close to my heart, and I just really, really love the characters. I know that there's a Netflix series, and I started it last night, so I'm so excited to keep watching that. I need them to like bust out the recent seasons though, because there's only 2. So anyways, I really love Heartstopper. I think everyone should read it, genuinely. The next book that I read in August was Love and War, which is the second in the Alex and Eliza story by Melissa De La Cruz. I cannot get this sticker off, and I hate it, so I'm so sorry. It follows Alex and Eliza in the first phase of their marriage post the war. If you know anything about Alexander Hamilton or the Hamilton musicals, you're probably like me, and you might really enjoy this series. I gave this book a 3 stars. I found it really interesting to learn about the history of, genuinely like the history of America. Melissa De La Cruz does a really good job at like immersing you into that time period, which is something I really wanted to branch out with and try more recently. So it is a historical romance, and I really recommend it if you like Hamilton. It's fun to see the things that happen in the musical happen in the book. And it's fiction, but it's still really cool to read about. I also read the 3rd book in the Alex and Eliza series called All for One on my Kindle, and this one was my favorite of the series. I gave this one a 4 stars. It gets a little bit like heated. There's some drama that's going on in the 3rd book, which I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed the drama aspect of it, but also just seeing the characters through these trials and tribulations, or whatever you want to call it. I found myself having some doubts about Alex throughout the book, and some doubts about kind of the storyline and where it was going, and what I was really trying to develop my own idea of the characters. And at the end of it, what maybe wasn't the happiest with the ending, but I think that it's the real life way that their story kind of like steps off. It was very much like a real life version of events, if that makes any sense. It's obviously like embellished the drama, but it was really good. And like I said, I really recommend the series because of how much I liked the third book. Also, that was part of my series that I've started challenge that I wanted to finish. So I did complete 2 series in this month. The last thing that I read this month was a short story. It was called Drop, Cover, and Hold. I read it on my Kindle. It is the 4th book in the Improbable Meet Cute series, which is like a series of short stories on Amazon Prime that a bunch of different authors each wrote their own little short story. And I really liked a lot of them. However, this was not one that I could recommend. I gave this one 2 stars because it was very fast how everything happened with the 2 main characters, and it is very unrealistic, which I kind of like to read about romances that could still be realistic in a way. Of course, everyone loves like the wow, this is so great, cutesy little romances, but I like them to have like a real life aspect, and with the pace of this book, it just wasn't super realistic for me, at least. It's really good at making you crave a pastry because it's about a woman who lives down the street from a bakery, and she goes into the bakery all the time, and there's this guy who works there who's always really rude to her, and she's trying to like stop going to the bakery because she's worried about him not liking her. So she's trying to avoid it, but then one day on her way home from work, she's like, I really want a pastry really bad. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself. So she walks in, and when she walks in, an earthquake hits. So she walks in at just the right time to be protected, because if she was outside, she would have gotten hurt. And essentially, she's stuck inside of the building with the mean guy. So, the way that they describe pastries is very good. And that's the thing that I got out of this book, was that I need to find a place to treat myself to pastries sometimes that are good, like a croissant. Describes croissants a lot in the book. So like I said, I did DNF one book, which is If You Tell by Greg Olson. I was listening to it as an audiobook, and it's a very interesting story. However, it is very depressing, and I'm just not in the headspace right now to be listening to it, to be completely honest. So that's why I DNF'd that one. Definitely check the trigger warnings before you try to read that one. I did not, and I was not expecting some of the stuff that I got myself into. It's also a little bit repetitive because it's a story that's told the same story from 5 different people's point of views. So it gets repetitive to hear the same things over and over from different people. In the future, I think that I might go back and try to finish it because it really is super interesting. It's just hard to read about. It's just not a comfortable book to read at night before you go to bed. But just be mindful of that if you do ever want to check that one out. So that is all the books that I read in the month of August, and now on to my TBR. First book that I want to read in September is Magnolia Parks. This one has been on my radar for so long now. Bestie Sarah, she is always hyping up this series, and I really want to read it. And I was just at work the other day talking with one of my coworkers about it, and she really wants to read it too, so I think we're going to read this one together. We're going to go look for her a copy this week, and then when she gets it, I'm going to start it, and I'm very, very excited. It feels, I don't really know much about the series other than it's like a toxic romance. Wattpad-esque is what everyone says, but it just feels like the right time to read this book is September. Take that how you will, but that's just how I feel looking at the cover and whatnot. So I'm very excited to read that one. Next up on my TBR, I have Carrie Soto is Back, which I don't have the physical copy with me right now because I keep going to Target and they keep being sold out of it, but I need the physical copy to read it because I need the physical copy because Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors, and I need to have all of her physical copies on my shelf. I know, so I really just want to find this one. But Carrie Soto is Back is one of the interconnected books that Taylor Jenkins Reid has between Malibu Rising, and Carrie Soto is the second-ish book. It can be a standalone. However, if you read Malibu Rising, there is some mention of Carrie Soto, so it's kind of intertwined a little bit. And I've already read Malibu Rising, and I really, really enjoyed that book, so I'm very excited to read Carrie Soto's Back. I am taking a trip to the beach at the end of September, so I put that one on my list as my beach read. However, I might end up reading it sooner, and then if that's the case, well, I have Better Than the Movies as a little mindless romance to read on the beach. This is another one that I have seen hyped up a lot, specifically by Haley, and Haley loves Lynn Painter, so I've heard great things about this little romance. I just think it's so cute. I'm just really excited to read this one. And it's just a bright cover, so I'm thinking maybe this will be a beach read too. Next up, I have sort of a thriller, Hidden Pictures. September is like a weird time because it's not completely feeling like fall all the time where I live, but pumpkin spice is everywhere, and sometimes it gets a little chilly, and I just feel like this is the perfect time to read this book. I've heard so many great things about this book. My friend just finished it a few days ago, and she was still telling me like I need to put it on the list fast. This is a story about a girl who takes a babysitting gig with this family, and the child starts drawing pictures, and essentially like the pictures are happy and fun, and then they slowly get more creepy, which I think is a very cool concept. And she kind of just like is discovering like what's making him do this. Is he troubled? Is he channeling powers or forces or whatever? I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. Next, I have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which has been on my radar for also a long time, just like all of these books that I keep saying. But I read Friend Zoned by Abby Jimenez, and I'm gonna be honest, I was not crazy about it. So I kind of put that series on the pause for the time being, and I wanted to pick up this one because I hear that this series is just amazing. And I haven't heard that about Friend Zoned, even though people say to start with that series. I know that you also can just start with this series, and you can also just read them as standalone. So I'm gonna read this one first, and I'm very excited to read this romance this month. Very last on my TBR is the Throne of Glass series. I have Assassin's Blade and I have Throne of Glass. So I wanted to ask you guys, what order do you think I should read them in? This is like the hottest topic for me when I tell people I want to read Throne of Glass, because like I said, I'm still reeling from ACOTAR and A Court of Silver Flames, to be specific, and everyone's like, yes, now you need to read Throne of Glass, but everyone reads it in a different order, so I'm not trying to take it too seriously. However, I do like to hear people's opinions on why you should read one or the other. If I should read Assassin's Blade first and then go to Throne of Glass, or if I should read Throne of Glass first and then save Assassin's Blade for the middle. Let me know what you guys think. But I do plan on doing a reading vlog of whatever I decide, because I know that people love Throne of Glass, and I am very excited to share my thoughts with the world. That is all for right now. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and let me know what you're planning on reading down below. Leave me a comment what your favorite book of August was and how you're feeling going into September. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I'll see you in the next one.